Welcome to the Daily Objective. Today is one of the more difficult episodes that we've done, and we'll see how it goes. It's the first time I'm doing a solo episode on the channel. This is not what I would have hoped to talk about, but I will be reading some of the stories or telling some of the stories of people who survived the horrific terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7th in Israel. Some of the stories of people who didn't. I will read some of them from English sources, some of them from Hebrew stories, some of them I'll just tell what I saw on Israeli news channels. Yeah, I hope you'll bear with me on this. I think there's a good reason to do it, and that's why we're here. Before we get to that, a few updates from the situation in Israel. So yeah, there are more rocket attacks on Israel. The rockets are reaching the central area, the Tel Aviv area, as well as others. This is, of course, day 11 of the war. So Hamas is still there. They're still alive and well and able to continue to carry out these attacks. Israel is continuing its very strong rhetoric and weakness in the non-rhetorical part of the war, which is probably how you're likely to win a war, not with words but with actions. Leaders of countries that claim to be Israel's allies are flying to Israel. So the German chancellor is there now. Biden will be there tomorrow. Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, is expected to visit. The French President Macron is also expected to visit. And yeah, I don't know if how this impacts Israel. I continue to think that it is used as an excuse not to take any serious military action. But part of the rhetoric that's continuing is the chief of staff of the army said if Hezbollah makes any mistakes, we will destroy them. Of course, I don't know what a mistake would be. Hamas has slaughtered over 1,300 people in Israel, taken over 200 hostages, and as mentioned, they are still alive and well and able to continue to act to kill Israelis. The rockets are not as effective as the invasion, but they are more effective than they used to be. Okay, so yeah, that I think there's maybe there's one other important update, which is the Secretary of State was involved in the took part in the Israeli cabinet minister meeting yesterday that lasted, according to Israeli news channels, around 8 hours. And the decision for Biden to visit came after that. And the reports say that part of the deal was that Biden will visit if Israel allows humanitarian aid into Gaza. Now, we spoke about this yesterday. Humanitarian aid would not be justified in any case, but of course, this only goes to Hamas. It goes towards Hamas's war effort. So Israel, in order to get the diplomatic win, so to speak, of having the president of the United States stand shoulder to shoulder with the Prime Minister of Israel for a photo op, Israel will actually be risking its own citizens by continuing to avoid action and actually feeding the enemy. But yeah, we are here to talk about some of the atrocities that happened on Saturday and some of the individual stories. Going to start by just reading a tweet, which is in English, and it's a quote from an interview that is in English. And Daniel will put that link in the live chat. So if you're watching it live, you can click it and watch it. You can watch it later. You can save it, and we'll also put the links in the description. If you're watching this later, there might be more links in the description later than there are during the live show. So keep an eye on that. This is a quote from a father. So he says, "They just said, 'We found Emily. She's dead.' I went, 'Yes,' and smiled, because that is the best news of the possibilities I knew. She was either dead or in Gaza. And if you know anything about what they do to people in Gaza, that is worse than death." Emily was 8. Now, if you click the link, I see that it is in the live chat now. You will hear those words from the father. There's a little bit more there. It's heartbreaking to watch and hear, as are many of the stories. I think I'm not sure. Some of the stories here are not the most horrific, certainly in terms of the scenes that you can see if you look for them. Yeah, again, there are so many of these stories from the atrocities of October 7th. So this is an article that was in the Guardian. I'm going to read parts of it, and there will be a link for that as well. It starts with a quote. "Mom and dad are dead. Sorry. Call help." Rotem messaged his family at 8:01 last Saturday morning. He lay under a quilt soaked in his mother's blood as he typed. Shachar Matthias had used her body as a shield, a last great act of love towards her 16-year-old son, when Hamas gunmen broke into their home in Cholit kibbutz. Inside their safe room, with shooting just outside the door, she ordered her youngest child to get under a thick layer of fabric, then lay on top of him. So he heard but didn't see the attack that followed. An explosion he thinks was a grenade breaking open the door. Another explosion and gunshots when the men were inside. For a brief eternity, his father screamed in pain. He felt his mother's body twitch above him, and then came a horrific silence, broken only by the gunmen laughing. Quote, "They laughed at their murders. They killed my parents and laughed," he said between tears in an interview arranged and supervised by his uncle. The bullets aimed at his mother also hit Rotem. Quote, "I felt a warm sensation in my stomach and my leg. I felt under my clothes it was blood." His own blood mixed with his mother's as he sent the rest of their family the brief message that seemed too painful to be real. "It's not funny," his sister Shil wrote back in the family WhatsApp group. Rotem just responded with, "Please." He begged his family to call for help, but it took more than 7 hours for rescuers to come. So he spent most of last Saturday injured, terrified, and alone in a house with the bodies of his beloved parents. I'm going to skip some of the rest of this article, and of course you can read the whole thing if you click the link that will be either in the live chat or in the description later. Okay, so later on, there's other things in this article, but later on it says, after Shachar died, Rotem spent almost an hour lying under his mother, struggling to breathe in a room slowly filling with smoke as a fire started during the attack, smoldered the living room. I love you all just in case. Mom's body is on me, he wrote to family members about 15 minutes after his first bleak message. Then a few minutes later, I am going to pass out, no air, bombs. Relatives offered medical advice on text messages, trying to help him treat his wounds and calm his breathing. Almost an hour after his mother died protecting him, he decided he had to leave, pushed her body away, and crept to a laundry room. Hamas were still stalking the kibbutz, and he could hear gunshots. His sisters Shir, 21, and Shaked, 19, had their own homes in the kibbutz and were also hiding alone in safe rooms. Their mobile coverage dropped in and out, and at one point, Autumn assumed they too had been murdered. They are not answering. I think they died, he messaged. The militants would return to the house again before Israeli forces reached him, and he hid again under a cover soaked with blood. At 4:30, he was finally rescued and taken to a hospital where he was operated on, then reunited with his sisters, who got out physically untouched but mentally devastated a few hours later. Okay, let's. That is a story that again is in the Guardian, and we will have a link to that in the description. Okay, there are a few stories that are from Israeli media that I want to or Israeli news sites that I want to read, and I'll translate them as I go along, so they're in Hebrew. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to tell a story that a few days ago I was watching Israeli news coverage. Now, Israeli television channels, the main terrestrial or broadcast networks or whatever you call them, or they are all now 24/7 news channels, and 24/7, not even in the sense of 24/7 news channels that you might know that during the night broadcast reruns of their prime time or just repeat the same news bulletins. They actually have new content and people being interviewed even throughout the night. And so I was watching, this was late a few days ago, and they were about to interview this family, and I saw them and I thought, they looked familiar from somewhere. I didn't know from where. And as they started interviewing them, I realized from where. This was from a video I had seen, either on the day or the day after. So this is a family where Hamas live streamed when they took over the home of this family. They live streamed from while holding this family hostage in their own home. There were the mother, the father, a daughter, and a son, and they had just murdered the other 18-year-old daughter. So they were live streaming the family as right after the daughter was murdered, and showed the rest of the family. Now, I don't know exactly the details, but they ended up taking just the father hostage. So the father is now held hostage in Gaza. The rest of the family, the mother and the two surviving children, are still there. And Israeli television is basically filled more and more with these stories. The details of the attack itself. The attack is over. There's only so much you can say about that. Not much is being done by Israel to respond to that attack. So there's not much to cover there in the news, except the occasional rocket fire from the south, from the Gaza Strip, and from the north, from Hezbollah and Israel's little bombing in response. So Yeah, this is if you speak Hebrew and you watch this, this is much of what you will see on a really 24/7 basis. Um, okay, apologies for the slight pause while I try to translate this next story in my head. So, um, like many thousands of other young people, Yaniv Soudi was working logistics in the party, the big nature party in Re'im that happened where the slaughter happened. Um, while the terrorists were on their killing spree, Yaniv managed to get to a car in a nearby car park, but instead of running away as fast as he could, he chose to uh, ask or invite 8 people, young people he didn't know, to join him in his car, and then uh, just drive as fast as he could. While driving, he was shot several times, although he kept driving until he brought them to safety. He did not survive uh, the shooting. So Ron Shoshani, one of the a young girl who was one of the people who Yaniv saved, said, after an hour of hiding in the bushes and hearing nonstop gunshots, we finally heard swear words in Arabic, and people were saying, "Put your hands up." We started running, and terrorists came from the other side, and like a miracle, Yaniv showed up with his car right in front of us. There were 9 of us in the car. Yaniv drove like crazy, and throughout the whole drive, they didn't stop shooting at us. The road was covered in bodies and cars that were thrown on the side of the road. He says after 4 incidents with terrorist groups, and even though he was shot several times in the hand and in the foot, he managed to bring us to a military base. Later on, we discovered that the base was also taken over by terrorists, but uh, in um, some way that was indescribable, he managed to just drive within the base like he knew exactly where to go, and stopped in front of a building where the IDF was. And he stayed in the car for 2 hours until forces came and tried to treat his injuries. Unfortunately, he didn't survive, but he saved us all. He wouldn't give up on any of us and didn't stop even after he was hit. Um, yeah, Yaniv was taken to the hospital in a critical condition, and several hours later died from his gunshot wounds. He was 26 years old. Um, okay, I think we have time for another story. Now, this is if I can find this story. This is also a story from an Israeli website. Uh, Unable to find it at the moment, but I think I might have it on my phone, and I will read it from there. Okay, I can't find the story. I thought I saved it in a couple of places, but there is a story of a photographer. And again, if I do find it, we will put it in the description. So if you're watching this later, and if not, you can come back later. It is in Hebrew, but the images are a big part of what I wanted to share with that story, which is this was this was somebody who was very passionate about photography. He was kind of telling it from memory. He liked photographing when the Iron Dome defense system would shoot down rockets shot by Hamas. So when he would hear sirens, and the story when we find it has some of those images. So when he heard the Iron Dome, because they were firing rockets as they were invading, he went outside. He took pictures of the rockets being shot and Iron Dome shooting some of them down. And as he was photographing, he saw paragliders. We don't know what he knew back then. I don't know if he realized who they are, but there are some pretty close up photographs of the paragliders. The assumption is so he was murdered by them. The assumption is one of them landed nearby him and just killed him. The camera was left there, and yeah, he was scheduled. He was due to get married soon, and his wife to be was pregnant in the sort of very late stages of pregnancy. So those are some of the stories. Now, the reason I told these stories, the reason we're covering this, it's important to remember. I told maybe 4 or 5 stories now of 1,300 people who were slaughtered, including babies, whole families. Basically, anybody Hamas they killed, except around 200 people who were taken hostage and are being held there in Gaza by these savages going through God knows what. So over 3,000 terrorists invaded Israel. Those were only the people who actually crossed into Israel. Thousands more are involved in firing the rockets. Many, many thousands more must have been involved in every planning stage of the operation, in building the tunnels, just this is a massive operation that this is why when people say Hamas is not the Palestinian people, well, so many were involved and so many others knew, at least to some extent, what was being done and what the purpose of it is, which is to kill as many Jews as possible. Now, when this happened, and as the news was coming out on Saturday, October 7th, hundreds of thousands of people in Western countries, I'm not talking about Muslim and Arab countries, in the West, hundreds of thousands took to the streets to celebrate these atrocities. And so and again, this is ongoing and will continue until Israel is wiped off the map. But it's not that when Israel is wiped off the map, everything we're all safe in the West. You can see some videos of what happens when these so-called protesters see a Jew walking by, not to mention somebody with an Israeli flag. Yeah, keep that in mind. And this fight, we're here. I think I mentioned this a few days ago. We're here at the Ayn Rand Center UK, wanting to make the world we live in better, freer, and that is why we do what we do. But if we are about to if we are facing a very real and imminent threat, I think that is all we can deal with until that threat is over, in whatever way we can. And of course, we have a platform that doesn't reach many people, but we reach as many as we can, and we will continue to do this. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, Walter, for the super chat. And I hope you all join me right now in a minute or so with the reality show. Thank you for watching, and see you again in a minute.